Please join me in welcoming to the CMX Summit stage, Crux Conception.
Thank you. Good afternoon or good evening.
Welcome,
everyone.
Crux.
Thank you. Wow. Yeah, this talk is basically based on personal experiences and also my love and passion for psychology. Matter of fact, my speaking name, Crux Conception, is a pseudonym for crisis intervention. And you're probably wondering actually, I'm a retired law enforcement, a retired homicide detective. I was a criminal profiler. If you've ever watched that movie, Criminal Minds, that's what I did. And I didn't watch the television show Criminal Minds because my girlfriend at the time thought that this one guy, light skinned male black, was handsome. And when I'm live, I tell people don't say his name, and they'll say Shamar Moore. That's who it is. And I can't bring myself to even watch those episodes anymore. But with that said, I was also a hostage negotiator, and again, being in a homicide investigation, dealing in homicide for 25 years, it took a toll on me when I had a child death. It was a double homicide with child death, and I developed PTSD from that. Through my research, I saw several therapists, psychologists. Nothing ever worked except for a therapy called rapid resolution therapy, and it helped me. But what I learned is through my research and my background, my educational background. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in forensic psychology, and working on my PhD in forensic psychology. And what I realized was that after my research, there's only 30 30%. That's even too high nowadays. But let's just say, to be on the safe side, based on a 7-year study 7 years ago, only 30% of our population that is on medication. Out of the 30%, only 10% really need medication for depression, schizophrenia, anything like that. And it's the main ones that the individuals who suffer from schizophrenia or advanced bipolar. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm a little tongue tied, but the rest of the population only needs therapy, someone to talk to, and that's the hard part, because if you're stressed out or if you're suffering from some type of psychosis, it's hard to sit there and just talk to an individual and have them look at you or look at their watch or interrupt you. So what I would like to suggest is that if you do want to talk to somebody, or you do uh, wish that a friend or a family member seek therapy, have him or her go to an individual who just sit there and, I hate to say this word, shut up. Just shut up and listen. And that was my bread and butter. That was like my go-to move as a hostage negotiator or crisis negotiator. I just sit there and shut up and listen. That's the best thing to do. Here's my contact information. We're going to talk about when stress meets tech. Again, Crux Conception at Gmail, telephone number area code 260-715-2685. Next slide, please. In this lecture, we're going to talk about, hopefully, will give hope and inspiration as I talk about my personal struggles with uh, mental illness, PTSD. And you heard me, and you noticed, if you were a seasoned interrogator or investigator, you go, that's the kill moment, because you heard me hesitate when I said mental illness. Because even today, I can sit and I look at myself, and it's hard for someone to say that. It's hard for men to say that, and it's extremely hard for black men to say that word, because it's a taboo. We're supposed to be strong, and I hate to say the word macho, but we don't talk about mental illness in my community, in the black community. Next slide, please. Um, Basically, next slide. We're going to talk about the overall alertnesses regarding onset of stress, stress at one's place of employment, mentally supporting yourself, and recognizing the best methods in the tense setting. Next slide, please. If I'm talking too fast, I apologize. I'm usually, when I'm this is a long speech, but if I talk too fast, please let me know and I'll slow it down. This is a poem I wrote. This is one of the things with rapid resolution therapy that helped me get over and deal with depression and PTSD. It was to write and to write poems about mental illness and social justice and police brutality. And it starts with, I hate how you appraise me with no rationality, charging fees while putting a price tag on my mentality. You invaded my mind both day and night, questioning my motives, whether they be wrong or right. So allow me to compare you with the actions of racist police. Mental illness you harass, invade, violate, and never cease. When outside my mind I look and see myself behave like this, one day sad, hopeless, the next day filled with bliss. You ask me who retains this brain. I respond, I think you already know. I cry to you, mental illness. I am the proprietor. Please let me go. Next slide. And those things right there just helped me. So on June 14th, 2017, at approximately 3:51 a.m., I was found unresponsive in my unmarked Fort Wayne Police Department vehicle. The responding officer knocked on the window and said, "Hey, Jinx," because that's my nickname. There's 17 of us in law enforcement. My mother calls us the black version of the TV show Blue Bloods. So Jinx, when you say Jinx in the city of Fort Wayne, that could mean anybody. That could be an FBI agent. That could be a Secret Service agent, ATF, local cop, sheriff, anybody. The officer asked what was I doing out so late. Next slide. And I told the officer I was going to kill myself. Um, Back then, they had me get out of the car. I got out of the car, and basically, what happened was, I had took two. I had some severe back pain that day, and I had took injections from my doctor, giving me three muscle relaxers, injections, and then gave me prescription medication and prescription painkillers. But unbeknownst to me and my doctor at the time, these muscle relaxers, monoxynol, is known to cause bipolar effects in rare occasions. And for me, it was on top of that, I had three homicide investigations, which really um, got to me mentally. 25 years into the law enforcement game, into seeing dead bodies, hearing mothers cry, parents cry, it never bothered me, except I had the kid death. And I was told as a rookie, kid deaths, children's deaths bother you the most, and it did that day. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Basically, it's what helped me, and this happened 4 years ago. What helped me was time and a team of mental health professionals that allowed me once again to see the man God intended me to be. So again, I cannot stress this enough. If you or a loved one or a coworker or a friend are seeking help or wanting to try therapy, even couples therapy, marriage counseling, any type of therapy, you want a person that just shut up the first session. Just shut up and listen to you. Because a lot of times, in my situation, it took me. I went through 17 therapists, and each one interrupted me, and each one made me feel like I was a paycheck, or I was just like I'm doing now, looking at the top clock, seeing how much time I have. And I ran into one, and I just stayed with him because, again, as I said, my model as a hostage negotiator or a crisis negotiator trying to talk people off a ledge was to just shut up and listen. Say, hey, how do you see this happen? Next slide, please. Now we're going to talk about the Dr. Dre method. It's a method I developed of humor and affection, and it's talking about downloading stress, rerouting stress, deleting stress, rebooting stress, and encrypting stress. Next slide, please. What they don't see, ladies and gentlemen, the pressure of working in the field of computer technology can be a dream for the observers and a nightmare for workers. Next slide, please. Working as a developer, a specialist, designer, engineer, expert, all that has demands of high level of precision over an extended period of time. And any minute lapse in one's job could be disastrous. Next slide, please. These demands can cause a increase in your blood pressure, adrenaline, mental strain, sexual functions, or lack thereof. Next slide, please. Basically, working these hours, even over 50 hours, you'll end up taking this home, ladies and gentlemen. I used to think that only cops took their jobs home, but as I started talking, and as I started speaking and going and giving lectures, it's everywhere. I was in Dallas, Texas, giving a lecture, and a guy from Microsoft came up to me and said, "Yeah, I was a developer, and now I was the developer for 12 years, and now I was being told that my job title and the description and my functions would have to change, or I would be terminated." And he said, "Do you think that's stress?" And I'm looking at him like, "Yeah, you're right." Next slide, please. What they don't see again, we have tedious, boring tasks, high demands, a work burden, absence of control over the job itself. Next slide, please. Now, I used to ask people to raise their hands. I'm not going to ask that because there's probably some managers in the field, in the area, or in here, but poor managerial interactions. Some people, I don't know about you, but for in law enforcement, a lot of people think that law enforcement has their act together based on what you see on TV. But no, we sit there, and as a homicide detective, as a lead detective, you still have to answer to somebody, and you sit and you think, how did this person ever become a supervisor? Defective technology, fear of loss. And a lot of people want to ask me, what is a former law enforcement doing at a tech conference speaking? And what I say every time I get on stage and I say this, I say, being a detective, a homicide detective, being a cop is just like technology. We have one thing in common in the tech community. We like problem solving. We like seeking answers. And if we were live in person, and hopefully next year we can do that, I'll see everybody shake their head like, yeah, you're right. Next slide, please. The health issues again: diabetes, tension, headaches, alcoholism. Next slide, please. Insomnia, irritable bowel syndrome, like my grandmother calls them, the bubblies, psychoneurosis, nervous wreck, sexual dysfunction. Yeah, some of us, like myself, had to even. Yeah, I had problems. It was to the point where when I was married at the time, my depression was so bad. My significant other thought that I was not interested, or maybe even messing around, because I just didn't. I had no desire to be romantic or want to be romantic. Next slide, please. The work pressure can explain as a harmful physical and psychological reaction. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, I'm going real fast, ladies and gentlemen, but I just wanted to make sure try to get everything covered. These arise when the demands of the career don't fit the capabilities. I'm going to repeat that again. This arises when the demands of the career you have and the career you're in now don't fit the capabilities, means, or requirements of the employee. Work stress may result in illness, as in as well as personal injury. Next slide, please. Work-related stress happens to be one of the most significant health issues in the modern world. Next slide, please. Work stress arises in response to both the work environment and the work factors. You could be working. I give a lecture talk about team building and using hostage negotiation and active listening skills to build better teams. And a lot of individuals tell me is that the people that they work with, they don't jive. It's not like somebody sat down and looked at the resume, looked at their bios, and just basically dissect these individuals and put them in together as a team. Instead, when we do team building or when we work as a team, we just lump people together. And basically, what that can cause is you can have like a cat and dog reaction. Next slide, please. Utilizing, here's some things to do. And ladies and gentlemen, what I got from them, I sent this out. I sent a questionnaire out to 1,300 of your peers in the tech field, and I asked them to answer these questions and send them back to me anonymously. And this is what I got from my research. Utilizing one's social skills can help or improve any individual's lifestyle. Here's some things that I that worked for me and could work for you if you try them. Build or use more often social media interactions. You don't even have to get on social media or type, but you can sit there and look at the funniness that goes on, especially nowadays. You can look and see, I don't want to say stupidity because everybody's entitled to a right in their voice, but you can see some of the things that you don't agree with that person saying. And instead of getting angered at their logic, you just laugh and think it's funny and hilarious. Schedule a weekly, monthly employee outing, something outside of work, team dynamics. Go karaoke and go for a weekly visit or a weekly walk or workout. What this does is in this team dynamics, you get to see what your team members are outside of the field. You get to see what they're like outside of work. Get a work wife or work husband. I had a work wife when I was a homicide detective. She was my biggest supporter and best friend. We were strictly platonic, and that was the best thing about it. Is that was literally my work wife, and I was her work husband. Next slide, please. Request that your company implement a discounted rate to a fitness facility if you don't have one. Most places do that in America. Anytime Fitness, uh, Planet Fitness does they do these things, and they'll give your agency, if you have I think 10 or more employees, they'll give you a discounted rate. Try running or even walking. I'm too old to run. 52 years old. My last day of running was when I chased Leroy down Lewis Street, 1500 block Lewis Street, and I broke my hamstring or tore my hamstring, so I don't run anymore. So next slide, please. Uh, Pick a hobby. If you don't have one, devote time to more frequently. One of my sponsors, I fly drones, and one of my sponsors gives me drones. I got 16 drones over here, and when I was in London, I was flying it, and it crashed, and I wasn't sad that it crashed. Actually, I was relieved because now I get to use my next drone. Or do write poetry, anything that will keep your mind focused on that activity and off of work, off of life's day to day tussle and bustle. That is a plus. Be yourself sometimes. Let that silly odd sock in your mental drawer come out. For instance, hopefully when the world gets back to normal, we'll travel, but and we'll go speak. But my main thing is I let everybody know, hey, join me at a karaoke party. I love karaoke. I love singing. It relaxes me. My signature song is Me and Mrs. Jones. Next slide, please. Oh, and I can hit the notes too. Talk to yourself, but in private, of course. There's nothing wrong with having a healthy discussion with yourself, just talking out loud. And what are you doing when you keep talking and talking? Next thing you know, some people say, I've talked to some people in the tech community who wrote back. They said they realized that they were praying. I realized that I was thinking my thoughts out loud, and next thing you know, they were formulating, and I was constructing um, just positive thoughts just by thinking aloud. Meditate, focus on your breathing. Like right now, I'm not focused on my breathing, but if I was, it'd be deep breaths. I someone in your one of your peers, when they sent back the questionnaire, they said you try putting a blood pressure cup on and try breathing and focus real slow. And I did it, and my blood pressure went down. I thought, wow, that's something I learned from somebody who doesn't have a PhD or a doctor behind their name. That came from a just a regular person, and I appreciate that. Visualize yourself before doing. Self awareness is self control. When you visual, it's just like some people say, speak before or think before you speak. Visualize yourself before doing. Next slide, please. Give yourself a me day, not me time, but a me day. Keep a positive mindset. Give yourself a me day, whatever it is. Tell your family, your wife, your husband, your significant other, whoever, that hey, I'm devoting this day to me. Not just an hour, not just 8 hours, but the whole day from morning, noon to night. I did one time. I binge. I'm a Mash. I love watching Mash. I've been binge watch Mash, and you know what? At the end of the day, I seen Mash over and over again, but when I got up from the couch and I went and did something, I said to myself, I took control of my life. Damn, that feels good. Next slide, please. The Dr. Dre method. Next slide, please. Download the cause of your stress. Determine what is causing the stress in you. You have to find out what is stressing you out. Next slide, please. The use of use a mental router to direct the stress to a secure site in your mind. If you can't ignore the stress, find a place to route it in a location in your head where it is safe, but it won't be any effective towards you. Basically, put it on. Like me, I'm left-handed, so my left side of my brain is more dominant. I just focus and I close my eyes and I just focus everything inside and I focus it drifting. And as I'm doing that, I'm focusing it drifting to the back of my mind, my back of my skull. And as I'm doing it, I'm breathing real slowly. And one thing led to another, and I was meditating. Next slide, please. Learn to delete the future stress elements. It's up to you. Once you discover what's causing you that stress, whether it be a person, place, or thing, delete it by using the past methods which you use to conquer it. Like my grandma used to say, if it ain't broke, don't try fixing it. Once I retired from law enforcement, I love law enforcement. I bleed blue, but I had no more need for them. I had no more need for that. I miss the clowns, but I don't miss the circus. So, in order for me to be a better person, a stronger person, I had to just stop. I had to stop texting them, ask them to remove me from their chat groups, this and that. And I did that because it was drastic, because I was sinking in a hole, ladies and gentlemen. Next slide, please. Reboot yourself and focus on a positive aspect. I met I met his manager, his former agent, the guy who played Redman or Method, Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. And I'm 52 years old. And when I was in my 20s, I used to see him, his mugshot all the time. He was a bad boy. Look at him now. We are taking our kids to go see this man on screen because he reinvented himself. If he can do it, we all can do it. Uh, Next slide, please. Finally, encrypt your mind to secure the positive parts. Once you have learned methods that are positive solution to alleviate stress, lock them and secure them in your mind. Heck, even give them a method to your or a password. I do. Mine is Doodoo Brown. That's it. That's my code word. And I don't think we have time to finish the rest, but I still want to say, if anybody, I have an unpublished manuscript. It's called Outside My Mind, Dirt on the Badge. It talks about my PTSD, my mental illness, my suicide attempt, and also my incarceration for one day, which literally tore me apart. And it has poems in there. I'll give that to you free. Just ask me or email me, and I'll send you a free copy. Just don't share it with a lot of people, because I'm still looking for engagement. Sorry, that was so quick. I'm sorry. Yeah, Rick James. Any questions? That was. There's supposed to be a video of him going like this in slow motion. So yeah.
That was a really, really beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for coming to our stage and sharing your story. We don't have very much time for questions, but just because you can't see the chat, I thought I would share some people's comments while you were chatting, just because there's some really great conversation going here. So Claire said, worry is like a rocking chair. You're moving, but you're not getting anywhere. And then Piper said, worry uses twice as much energy. The first time is before the event. The second time is the event itself. Jen shared that I realized that singing and swimming, which are my favorites, are things that force me to actually breathe.
Yes. I love that. I love it.
Right. Yeah. You can do something that makes you need to breathe.
Yeah. Who said the worry? Because they were so right. Because as I look back on my 25-year career, I always worried about what people think. I never put pictures of kids up, my pictures of my family. I just wanted to be this no nonsense super detective, and I wanted that image. Bow ties, suits, shoes, everything had to be perfect, because I wanted the parents of the victims to know that they're going to get a perfect detective. And I just worried constantly about what people said about me. And when I had my downfall, my picture and mugshot was in the paper, I just wanted to die, because for 25 years, I just wanted to be perfection in the eyes of other people. So she was absolutely right on that, the nail in the coffin.
I honestly, I feel like we could talk for a lot longer about this. I think this is definitely a conversation that resonates with a lot of our attendees. So thank you very much for
Thank
joining us.
you.
Please flood the chat with all of your emojis of love for Crux Conception.
Thank you.